So, all of us have had a lot of time for thinking lately with the lockdown, uh, and this has been a really important time of reflection for me and for many people. And it's during those times, we could call it soul searching, we could call it reflection, we could call it a wake up call. But in those times, what's happening is that we're getting beyond our habitual, traditional, conceptual thinking about the world, and we're kind of going back to the drawing boards. And in this little short video, I want to talk to you, in times of walking into the unknown in your life, whether it's during this pandemic we're in right now, or in other things in your life that you're going through, a new job, a new relationship, a divorce, an ending, that in those times we have to trust in something that's much deeper than what we already know. We have to go into creative thought, this unknown. And so in this brief little video that I'm making here, I want to give you a compass for getting through those times, because we all need a compass when we're going into the wilderness, the unknown of the future. We have to have a way of guiding ourselves to know if we're on track or off track. And as I was thinking about this, I happened to talk to a friend of mine the other day from Boulder, and he was sharing with me a story about Isaac Newton, the famous physicist, who back at another time in history when we had the bubonic plague, where over 100,000 Londoners died in 1 year, he was a young student at Oxford. He had just started Oxford in graduate school studies in mathematics. And he was sent home, like all the other students, to his little small village where he came from. And so he had a whole year where he wasn't in classes. He wasn't trying to please his professors. He wasn't trying to learn what they had to teach him. He just went into a deep state of reflection. And during that time, he discovered all kinds of mathematical theories that are still used in calculus and algebra today. They're kind of the heart of what led to his later discoveries about what's called Newtonian theory of gravity. That really was the impetus for the whole Industrial Revolution. So a little bit of reflection time can go a long way in our lives to transform our lives, and not just our own life, but people around us and maybe even the world. So where does that power come from? Another man back in the 1970s had a similar experience, Sydney Banks, when he went into a period of reflection. He was a very deep soul, and he discovered what we now would call the three principles of the three principle psychology, that for me, in my estimation, are the foundation for a true science of psychology. William James said back in the 1800s that once psychology discovers its true principles, it will change humanity more than when we discovered how to create fire. So that's how powerful this understanding is. So I just want to give you just a short description of that innate power that we all have, the power of the principles. So there's three principles: the principle of mind, the principle of thought, and the principle of consciousness. Now those three principles are all intertwined. In one sense, they're one principle. When we talk about mind, we're talking about an invisible intelligence and power that is the force behind all creation. And we as human beings, as being part of nature, we're part of that universal intelligence and design of mind. Mind is the source of all new ideas. It's the source of all creativity. It's the source of everything that we, in our own personal world, create as our reality, moment to moment. So it's a power, an invisible power, a spiritual power, if you will, that you can't see. That is the foundation for all of everything that we see in this world that isn't part of nature. Everything that's been created from human beings came from that power of mind. The second principle, thought, is really what we create with. Thought is this, it's a power and it's a principle, but it comes through us as an image or a concept or thought, and whatever that thought is what is the power that creates how we view our day-to-day, moment-to-moment life. So we're always living in the feeling of whatever thinking we're having in this moment. So if I'm really worried about tomorrow or what's going to happen in my meeting next week, or are my kids going to be okay, in this new world that we're in, then those thoughts create a feeling. They create an experience, a perception first, then a feeling, and then from those feelings, we act on those feelings to create and influence other people in our life. So the power of mind, this neutral power, super intelligent, combined with thought, allows us to, like an artist, create on a blank canvas an experience that we call our life. So that's the second principle. Thought is the principle of creation. Using the power of the mind as a catalyst to turn that thought into an experience. The third principle is consciousness. This is really very basic. Consciousness is what is the power that takes that invisible thought and turns it immediately into the sensory perception that we see, hear, feel, taste, touch, and emote. So every thought that we have creates a vibration through our physiology, our brain, that sends sensations throughout our physiological system. And that's the feeling that we live in. So we're living in the feelings that consciousness brings to life from our thoughts. And all of that happens through the power of mind, this invisible, wise intelligence that is behind all of the creation of our experience. So that can kind of sound complicated or deep, or it can sound really simple at times. But these are the fundamental building blocks of every human experience. It's what's behind every violent act. It's what's behind every creation of a beautiful piece of art. It's what's behind the design of a city, the building of a home. It all starts with thought, and all is catalyzed through the power of mind to create the reality that we now live in. So as we go forward in our lives, it's so important to remember that we are not victims. We are not powerless. We may not be able to control things that are going on around us, but our experience is unique to us, and we are the creator of that experience through these three powers. And as we become more aware that that's what's happening, we feel less affected by stressors in our life, and we see that we always have a choice. We always have a choice to go within and listen to the wisdom of mind and to the new thought and insight and how to deal with it, or to react from old habits. So in a nutshell, that's what the three principles are. And I hope this will stir your curiosity and interest to learn further. Thank you for listening.